Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bubble podcast. As you guys know, I'm going to repeat it in every episode. I do believe that AI is going through a financial bubble, but the underlying technology is so phenomenal foundationally that it is going to completely change the world, the way that we do business, the way that we live our lives. And in that in the spirit, we obviously look for founders who have a sort of long term vision and are building for the post bubble world, who we believe are going to be instrumental in creating these new experiences for the world by 2050. One of those gentlemen is actually sort of trying to disrupt the e-commerce space. Now, e-commerce itself historically has been, it's a behemoth. It's something that has already sort of matured as an industry. There are huge companies starting with Amazon now. It's everywhere. Every major region in the world has their own sort of version of Amazon. There are hundreds of different genres of platforms that exist. So the industry itself is nothing new. But I also feel like as consumers, there is increasingly a redundancy within that industry, particularly when I go and try to shop using platforms. It increasingly is an overwhelming experience. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of SKUs, products that are available, and I get this decision fatigue every time I'm browsing through them. So obviously, for me, when I was looking around within e-commerce, what could AI potentially do? Obviously, beyond marketing, beyond a lot of these tools and automations, in terms of customer experiences, this particular company I found very, very interesting because on the AI front, they're reimagining the sort of customer experience, trying to take it back to what we all grew up with sort of these personalized sales agents, where you don't have to browse through millions of categories of products, but rather go to a sales agent, and they will eventually, based on whatever your requirements are, guide you to the best possible available product. That's one aspect. Obviously, it's nice, it's fancy, but they really seal the deal by sort of disrupting the other end of the spectrum, which particularly in the global south, in the eastern economies, is very, very important. And that aspect is ensuring that the trust is there. So they champion this thing called try before you buy, but they bring it to sort of quick commerce. Within 60 minutes of you purchasing or placing an order, someone comes to your house, you get the product, you try it, and if you like it, you buy it then. They launched 8 months ago. As per my research, they had $1 million in pre-seed funding. And since then, they've gone to $4 million ARR. They are looking towards $30 million by the end of the year. They're launched in two cities, Bangalore and Delhi NCR. We'll know more about that because I'm not very familiar with the geography of India, but sounds extremely exciting. Today, we have with us co-founder and CMO of Epik e-commerce out there in India, Varun Chopra. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us.
Likewise, Muzamil, I think your energy is very, very contagious in a positive manner, and great to see the description of disrupting e-commerce. Even though it started with a small step further, but I think from there on we imagined this could become really, really big, and I think that's entrepreneurship is about. Finding the way from the next step onward. So glad to be here and glad to spend time with you on this.
100%. Varun, I'm going to just sort of quickly start off with getting a sense of you and sort of what brought you not just to entrepreneurship, but to e commerce. And then now with a lot of AI that we're seeing in your company and your product.
Yeah, Muzamil, so my background has been in engineering, like in terms of studies. However, just after the my graduation, I got intrigued on psychology, sociology, even reading a lot of marketing and advertising books. That came very, very naturally in my college because of great exposure, one of the top premier industries, premium institute in India. However, I actually came to Germany for an year to do my master thesis, and then I realized particularly that I'm just through traveling all these cities in Europe, I'm finding my way towards I need to spend the next 30, 40 years of my entire life in a field where I really want to be. And yeah, marketing seems to be my cup of tea. Very soon realized and double clicked on it, and I opened my first company back in 2018, which is called the Teaser Company, only focusing on D2C e-commerce brands. And the entire wave post COVID, because everything offline was shut, got catapulted into a new industry altogether in India, and we ride the wave. I think average founders, good market is what it takes to become large, and we scaled very very nicely with bootstrapped all without any penny in the bank on day zero, with no background in business in the family. I met Shivam and we started it. 5 years of very very sharp compounding, frugal execution, getting our way to building the teams, almost hitting 60 members in 2024 with 100 plus active accounts. I actually got an exit, wherein an AI verticalized agency wanted to roll up all the creative and marketing industry, from graphic point of view, performance creatives point of view, and that led me to some money in the bank, even though it was profitable, and we were saving and compounding to get more bigger clients. But the entire 5 years of seeing e-commerce from a performance dashboard lens, seeing that conversion rates don't go more than 3, 4, 5%, and seeing how out of almost 500 brands that we dealt with in over 5, 6 years, only a handful of them survived. Like, I can count them on fingers, probably less than a hand of fingers. So it meant that yes, it is actually tough to build in e-commerce market, but because we were shovel providers in the era of people trying to find gold, I think shovel makers make a lot of money, and that's what like the exit let me do that. And while in that journey, I figured out probably there is something wrong with Eastern economies. China is 40% penetrated, in online world, offline is 60 for them. US is even further. So there is that trust deficit in the economy. And at that time, when I had sold my business, I moved to Bangalore, because I knew it's the Silicon Valley. And at that time I read Naval Ravikant, who says, there are three big levers of your life: where you live, who you work with, and what you do. Typically, we figure out what you do first, then who we work with, and then where you live. However, their importance is reverse. Where you live actually has the biggest impact. And it was a no-brainer after reading that statement, even though it took some time. But I wanted to be in Silicon Valley. If not SF, then why not in India? At least I can start from here. And yeah, I mean, that entrepreneurship led me to meet a lot of good VCs, entrepreneurs in Bangalore. And yeah, I mean, merging with a company, I was running Homified as an experiment. We merged with an very very sharp founders, and figured out that home demo or experiential commerce is the next layer of commerce, and where it's heading, because conversion rates are not increasing in these economies. Probably the best way is to put an AI solve for that overwhelming problem of ensuring that people get a curated marketplace going, and they are able to experience that brick and mortar at the comfort of their living room, which led us to raise from InfoEdge $1 million, and very very massive growth from there on. Something that I haven't fathomed, but it's just that life gives you surprises in entrepreneurship, every day and day out. So yeah, that's my story, Muzamil. I've tried my best to summarize last 7 years of my life.
No, that makes sense. I'm gonna touch upon a personal aspect to it first. You said you went to Germany for a year and then you chose to come back. And I don't know if you chose to come back or circumstances led you back to India. I understand India is a huge. It's the second largest sort of consumer market in terms of they have 450 million middle class customers. It's a huge base. It's a huge problem to solve. But while that's there, as young people, when you explore and experience West for the first time, your gut instinct says, it's so comfortable. Let's just stay here. Let's have your standard classic sort of middle class developed world lifestyle. You get a car, you get a house, you have a good family. It takes guts to actually, leave all of that and say, listen, I'm not just gonna go back and live in the comfort of my family owned house. I'm actually gonna go and become an entrepreneur. And then it's not easy. No matter how much you glamorize it, Eastern societies obviously have a long way to go in terms of building those systems, and you have to fight, left, right, and center to make it work. What led you back to India? And do you, 7 years on, um, Do you think that was the right decision?
What, Muzamil? I think it's always, I believe in connecting the dots backward, and I can't tell you how happy I am being in the spot, and I would never ever want to reimagine, how could I play my game better in the past. It's always, forward looking in my case. Touchwood, I've trained my brain to be that person. However, like you mentioned, it is very, very tough going from an Eastern economy to seeing how planned, how comfortable that life is, especially in European economies. I've heard US is still very agile, very fast. Entrepreneurship is there. You can find your pace. However, Europe is like very, uh, very, very laid back, to, put the right word. However, I could figure out that this is something is not for me at this stage and this life. Probably I still dream of going back to Italy after I turn 50 and get some few tennis courts under my name and bring all my friends over there to stay and play tennis all day long. But yeah,
Have a
that
Tuscany vineyard and
Yes, absolutely. Like how they live their weekends. Like I still, remember going on a bicycling tour for like few hours, then running a marathon. I mean, that life is really beautiful for, a balanced, healthy lifestyle. However, I feel that, I still had a lot of young, warm blood in me, and yeah, it was also about Germany being, my inclination towards marketing. At the same time, not knowing the language fully well, I felt India is the right place to be. There was no more overthinking from that aspect, but yes, I miss the lifestyle. Sometimes I had proper chiseled six pack abs and not doing too many workouts. It was just because I'm walking 5-10 kilometers every day, eating very nice meaty proteins, and yeah, but I feel now Eastern economies are also evolving very, very rapidly, be it the best of the best groceries or the brands. We are all, globalization is at its peak with AIs. Everyone can see how fast all of us are moving. So yeah, but and my sister stays in Germany, so I still get to go there, spend a month summertime there. So yeah, it's best of both the world for me. I think we can
that
now
makes
travel
sense.
and yes. Yeah.
That makes sense. So moving forward just a little bit. So my experience, I went from Pakistan to Dubai and Dubai to the US. Interestingly, I found US to be rather dull and rather, when I having lived in Dubai for a couple of years, when I landed in Atlanta airport, which is the largest airport in the world in terms of the volumes that they deal with, I genuinely felt like I was in a third world country because the infrastructure was so old, the systems were not that vibrant. So one of the things that I've sort of experienced in my thesis is that even though the infrastructure is not that good out there in Asia, there is a certain vibrance, there is a certain youthfulness to solving problems and taking control of your life. And growing up, there was this idea of America being the land of opportunity. I feel like really the real land of opportunity is largely Asia, where there are problems to solve. And so within that same breath, I'd love to get a sense of what's really going on in India, because from the outside you see two extremely polarizing opinions about business, right? So at one point you have this rising India, lots of development, lots of unicorns that came into being, particularly post COVID. And then you started to hear a lot about the sort of overvaluation, bubble bursting, companies going bust. And so a lot of people said, oh, they accelerated too quickly and the market is not mature enough. I want to get a sense from someone out there in the trenches. What is the overall startup ecosystem like? Particularly from someone who's actually built and, sort of participated in that. You mentioned earlier that majority of the brands that you sort of worked with no longer exist. So who are the ones who are eventually, sort of persevered, and what's the ecosystem in the industry looking like as of right now?
Very interesting, Muzamil. I can definitely talk about 7 to 8 larger industries that have at least spoken to a lot of founders, but they all will be very one-on-one POVs. Definitely, few of them through research and the case studies or the reports that come out. Speaking about consumer tech, since I've spent considerable amount of time in building that ecosystem or being that part of that ecosystem, especially with Epic. Consumer tech in India, particularly, uh, even with Amazon, Flipkart. Flipkart is one of the pioneer competitor to Amazon, and that got bought out by Walmart for one of the largest exits that happened and made hundreds, if not thousands, of people millionaires, which means that the ecosystem, gets the money in their hand and then they back again the founders because they have themselves seen that journey. So the money cash flow in terms of supporting entrepreneurship, in terms of government pushing a lot of incredible policies that can support through taxes, through subsidies. At the same time, the aspiration of when Shark Tank US came to India around 4 years back, the aspiration is deep rooted to tier 2, tier 3 cities, and it is as good as how 30 years back everyone wanted to become a Sachin Tendulkar, who is one of the greatest batsmen. Now the aspiration has moved to becoming the best entrepreneur, which means that the entire country is pumped up to solving problems and taking a leap, even though everyone knows that it is a few only survives in this game. However, that leap which gives you the maturity, it's not about the victory, it's about maturity, which is happening at scale. Even if people are failing or companies are going down, that is a part and parcel of economies that is made that way. However, I feel great time to be in India, whether it is D2C ecosystem, consumer tech, even AI for that matter. We might not be working on the infrastructure layer like your silicon chips and your data centers. However, the application layer is beautifully getting built in cities like Bangalore, and there are a lot of engineers working remotely. I think half of SF is having CTOs in Bangalore or Indian folks over there. So I feel it's like what happened with China 10 years back. We are at the cusp of that evolution because the youth economy is there. The government support, infrastructure, financial support is all in line with making East, the new West. And yeah, I mean, that is some why a lot of people who have stayed in US are coming back. A lot of investors are putting their houses, their VC houses in this country. So I feel it's nothing better than this, and you enjoy the West whenever you want to go for vacation. It's the best of the times to live in India, I believe.
Makes sense. Now coming on to Epic itself. Tell me about, and I want to get a sense of both aspects that I mentioned early on, right? So the AI layer, which is um, the business itself is largely brick and mortar. It's physical goods. It's not a service. It's not something, because when a lot of times when we talk about AI, I feel like a lot of 90% of what we have right now is just early stage novelty slop, you can call it. Um, and so I've tried to really think about genuine use cases that are going to sustain longer term. And so I was curious to see that integration that you had of the sales agent. I want to get a sense of how many people are actually using it. Do they find it useful? What got you to build it? And then run me through that evolution overall as a company over the last 8 months. Particularly, did you start off with this sort of try before you buy strategy? Um, has that changed the way that consumers interact with buying online? And again, for the sake of our viewers, India right now has around 8 to 12% penetration, according to Google. My data could be wrong, of e-commerce. And so there's their delta of, let's say, if you compare to China, there's a delta of 30% that needs to be um, captured, right? So I'm curious, what has the response been so far in terms of this new model that you've introduced?
Yeah, Muzamil, I think they like Mark Cuban, who is one of the famous sharks in the US, he very nicely puts it. He calls this after like the post AI era to get to a Milli Vanilli effect. That's the term he used. It's again a societal phenomena, uh, which simply meant that if anyone can replicate through AI, in can make their avatars, virtual avatars, even online, what it takes for you to just copy an Apple branding or a Dyson branding, get a supply chain from China and get it going. Your Shopify store gets live within minutes now. What he meant that once the internet gets overburdened or overwhelmed with virtual creators to virtual brands to almost like a single, probably an AI running the show at the back end of all this, will actually make the entire society trust more experiences and touch as internet gets lower on trust because of commoditization of content through AI. Now, how this beautifully puts in that actually already there are trends showing people are going more towards concerts, they are going more out drinking, eating, and there are community building happening because stuff online. And this is like the larger trend or the impact of AI, which we are actually betting upon, which is experiential commerce. Now, walking you through the journey of commerce, the brick and mortar in the 90s, 2000s, were prevalent. Your DMarts and your Walmarts of the world, people used to go and shop there. While as Jeff Bezos, Amazon came in 2000s and 2010, the e-commerce wave came in. A lot of players open shopped, even vertical commerce players as well as larger horizontal players in India, very particularly in 2020, just after COVID. The phenomenon of quick commerce came in, which said that why do you wait for a day for products to come in if it can come in 10 minutes? And because of availability of labor at scale and the cost, unit economics making sense, it penetrated like how. I mean, these companies have become multi-billion dollars in 4 to 5 years, which took Amazons and larger e-commerce of the world decades. Now, what we call is the next commerce to be experiential commerce, and especially for high touch, high consideration, high AOV products, wherein because of the overwhelming on the internet in terms of the catalog, brands, and reviews also, getting fudged because of AI, as you can actually pay a middleman money and they can put reviews on behalf of your brand. All of this is actually accumulation to a try before you buy model, which we call as a home demo in 60 minutes for a consumer facing communication. Simply meaning that an AI agent can actually on the website, as per your quick requirements, either through your voice or through a typing mechanism, wherein let's say you are looking for a robo vacuum or a mobile phone, or for that matter a coffee machine, your budget, your brand preference, your use case can simply help you scrape through the internet and come down to top two, top three products, wherein after that you have a simple button of a home demo, wherein we augment the entire brick and mortar experience. So a guy actually picks up the product from a store nearby, comes to your home within 60 minutes, actually makes a real coffee for you and interacts with you so that you very well know about the product, the brand, the price points, the use case, and any kind of doubts that you could simply have online is where we see the commerce going. So imagine tomorrow if you want to buy guitar, we'll bring two guitars, a person will sing three songs for you and then you can actually buy them. I mean, it's a wonderful environment to be because human interactions are not going down. Even though we love AI on the productivity efficiency level, but at the core we have always been social animals. So this is where we feel this commerce will evolve, and that's our bet. So yeah, Muzamil.
Makes sense. Going into a bit more granular within this sort of industry, you've been in the brand building space. Obviously, customer journeys, trying to understand how do you reach the customer in the right way. I'm curious, what other aspects? I mean, what we've been discussing was has been very sort of customer facing, but in terms of the behind the scenes, the engine, right? Now you have a lot of these tools that are automating a lot of what required a lot of humans previously to verify and check and break in many ways as well. I mean, I ran a very small sort of home-based e-commerce store. I think the biggest challenge that we always had was getting those orders, verifying, ensuring that the sort of pickup folks were able to get the right thing. And it keeps on breaking because there's always a human in the loop making mistakes. Humans are, we tend to make mistakes. And so now you have not just a lot of automation. Automation has already always existed, but um, it's a lot of democratized automation, right? Very at scale, cheap, customized to everyone's solutions. And so I'm curious, how much of AI is now seeping into your workflows, behind the scene workflows, in the engine that you're building, both in terms of the platform itself, as well as overall, let's say, customer journeys and accounts and deliveries and logistics and everything that you're doing?
Absolutely, Muzamil. Like, I'll actually mention a very intriguing conversation, or rather, a conference that I attended by 314 Capital, which is one of the VC funds in India. And one of the partner actually presented the entire movement towards disruption of labor as we speak, both blue collar and white collar. Now,
Mm.
what we have seen through AI is, yes, intelligence is being democratized, taste, judgment, wisdom is what it takes to for you to move to the next step, and everything else through vibe coding, through product management, can simply be automated, and you don't need that many people. And we have seen what's happening with IT space, in companies who were listed going down with a cloud update, like many of them, I think we have all seen in the news. I feel like how you mentioned the use of AI, not just on the part where we are replacing human labor through AIs, we see with humanoids, especially with Tesla talking about, how humanoids can be much more efficient in terms of real labor, blue collar labor jobs that are working in the factories or working in, let's say, logistics, working in agri, all these industries within next 5 to 10 years is the entire labor is up for disruption. And the conversation of universal basic income came from that matter, that at present we can see the IT jobs and everything in the service economy is going down with AI in terms of better efficiency, lower cost, and higher productivity. In terms of, as soon as these bots and humanoids are back into the system, the blue collar is also up for disruption. So, where I wanted to actually take this conversation was right now with just sales AI agents, telecalling AI agents, across internal apps that our teams have created to communicate, from logistics to demo getting completed to even voice AI as we enter the house. Because we are carrying very expensive goods, we voice record the demo, which distills us a lot of primary data talking about the consumer, the persona, what actually can you pitch them next without affecting their privacy, because we with consent record those demos. And we have seen massive use of AI, and our tech team is very lean, like 5-member team, and they all are on Claude Code, typing and just solving whatever they feel in an operational inefficiency or a marketing GTM inefficiencies or any idea. We are on top of figuring out what AI tool is out there or searching for it. And I think Noodle Seed is something I've also found out just hunting on Product Hunt. What are people building with AI? And I think with Goji Berry, there are many tools coming in that can entirely automate your sales process, your internal processes, even summaries of your Slack groups, what you need to do. And even I think there is very little time to see where entirely it is automated. Only thing is left is probably how Naval says is, in an 8 billion world, like the population, the best day would be when we have 8 billion entrepreneurs. So everyone actually works for themselves because AI has actually made them powerful to that extent. So we see even with the people who are going on giving demos, we feel within next 2 to 3 years we will put humanoids who can actually probably walk. Let's see how consumers would behave to it, but we will try a pilot of sending some robots who can give a demo and see how that behaves. Or you can always have a choice to choose a human or an AI who can give you a demo. So like that's a utopian world we are entering, and I am super excited because I'm a tech buff, but it can be overwhelming for a lot of people understanding, if everything is disrupted, we always enter like a better era, and we can spend time on our own creative, insights, spending time with communities that we really love, and doing things, finding your purpose, which is a tough element. Probably that's a topic for an entire podcast again. But it will give time people to find their real meaning and purpose, which is the top level of Maslow's hierarchy. So I'm really excited to enter that world. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I think I had a conversation with this gentleman, Paul, recently, and he sort of reframed the entire thing where I spoke to him about, let's say, joblessness and universal basic income. And I was like, oh, there's so much fear around it. And he said, the average human being today works more than the average peasant in the dark ages. So we've actually, built this incredible world, but are we really free? Because in many ways, if we don't have time, time is where wealth is defined. If you have all the money in the world and no time, you're not really, are you that wealthy? So maybe the reframing that we require is, if we have productivity increase with a lot of this automation, how do we equitably distribute it and then reduce the amount of work that we do and potentially spend more time, with our families, with society, with doing human experiences. I'm curious though, coming back to sort of Epic and sort of customer discovery. Historically, Google has been the sort of the gateway to the internet, and from Google you could then SEO your way, or let's say media buy your way to a different platform. From the within that platform you can then buy something out. So essentially Google was your mega market district, and then platforms were the mall, and then from there you could go to a brand and buy a particular product. Now we're hearing over a billion users using LLMs every day, or chatbots every day, possibly even more every month. And increasingly, and that's something that's my own anecdotal experience, I don't even remember the last time I actually went to Google. I'm just using either Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT. And my entire experience has changed, where even if I did end up going to Google, I just felt like it's just so noisy and there's a lot of hacking. People have just pumped in a bunch of random links courtesy of SEOs or whatever. And so the discoverability of businesses has radically changed, and obviously that impacts e-commerce platforms as well, or any business for that matter. I was looking at numbers for India. India is the largest user base of AI in the world right now. There are 65 million people daily using chatbots. There are over 100 million people using it every week. According to Perplexity, 38% of their entire user base is in India. According to ChatGPT, 16% of their entire user base is in India. So that's huge. Um, I'm curious, how have you started to begun to optimize your sort of GEO or AEO as they call it, where people can begin to discover you or about you on these sort of LLMs? And you mentioned Noodle Seed a little earlier. Have you gotten an app live? Have you sort of started to imagine what that discovery layer is going to look like in the post sort of LLM as the primary gate to the internet world?
So, Muzamil, I have a very counterintuitive opinion also on this journey, in terms of, while it looks at the surface that Google is being disrupted, I have a counter thesis, and at the same time, for Epic, what we are doing, I'll touch upon the same. Like, whatever these LLM engines are scraping, these are all pages or the database actually built on top of Google, or that entire information that was being listed on it. So they have a very, very large foundation of data, which I feel as soon as these LLMs stabilize, there is entire, funding cycles that are going on at large scale. When once they settle, I feel Google will still have a lot of power, in terms of, even if you are searching through LLMs, what they are eventually showing you are the most relevant links that are clickable, and landing you to some pages, or giving you the solution then and there within the chatbot. However, about the evolution of commerce in this case, or the search engines for sure, from a consumer interfacing standpoint, has been completely disrupted. All of us are no more going to a Google, or very only some memorable instances which you will want to go to a Google. However, 95% of the searches are are moving towards the direction, and I'm sure within, like you mentioned, probably a couple of years or so, everyone would move to these ecosystem. And the next search engine probably would be phrase led, not exactly keyword led, because how we converse is how these engines are getting built. And the more and more you are able to write on, or probably create on, the relevant phrases and those topics, is how these engines might rank you even better. However, not being from an AEO SEO standpoint, but from a consumer behavior standpoint, we thought uh, it would be late if we do even a little bit of delay in getting ourselves on the bandwagon of AEO GU. And the idea was, because it's a superior value prop in case of Epic, which is everyone else on the internet says buy now in terms of commerce products. We are the ones saying free home demo in 60 minutes. So whenever people are searching on an AEO, I need to buy an oven, please suggest me, or anything around, I have a problem of a dirt in my house, what do you recommend? And they pull like a robo vacuum cleaner. And while Get Epic through Noodle Seed got listed, I feel a lot more traffic in time to come. Already we have seen many people typing for these phrases on buying around, comparison, especially in terms of multiple products, when they are confused between an Apple or a Samsung, or multiple kitchen appliances, to multiple, let's say, sunglasses, perfumes, lab grown diamond, across different categories. The experience in which how a chat GPT or a Claude or a Gemini gives you response is something already at a level in which we can, it makes it very concise for us. But yes, I feel for any brand it is good time to plug in those relevant content or conversation, how your consumers are speaking. It is not how they are scrolling, it is how they are conversing, which is very different world altogether. So it is still evolving. However, I've taken the first step in terms of learning that if people are searching about these phrases, how can we be relevant of showing a demo possibility at the time of research, is how I'm seeing this at this
Hmm.
moment.
You're in two cities right now, two huge cities. I mean, my understanding is, Delhi. Obviously, everybody knows about Delhi as sort of the capital, and my understanding is, because what I know is that you have a separate chief minister for the place. So I'm assuming it's huge. That entire sort of Greater Delhi area. Um, but Bangalore again is the Silicon Valley of India. So capturing those two major markets, I'm curious, what do the next 5 years look like for you in terms of the expansion that you're looking at? Are you looking at expanding statewide? Are you looking at expanding across India? And I want to connect this to sort of a multinational growth approach of whether you have that, whether you're thinking, I mean, I know India is an incredibly huge market and you don't really need to go be multinational, but is that part of the roadmap at some point where you say, okay, if we can prove this in India, then let's say, can we take this to, I don't know, Philippines, Indonesia? Can we take it to Middle East and North Africa? What does that look like for you guys?
No, definitely. I think the vision is large here in this case, and I've spoken to a lot of friends in Dubai and in even Singapore, wherein they also feel the value of a home demo. In case they have kids at home where they can't go out, in case of older people, especially when physically probably they are not as fit as shopping offline, or not super technologically advanced in terms of buying online, where a home demo makes sense. Like you mentioned, it is a very large market to cover. But whenever it comes to a first mover advantage, because there's no one else out there who is doing a home demo commerce, the goal, and we have luckily the best of the best. We see InfoEdge backing us, who have been backing the largest marketplaces of India as we speak. Zomato, who is eternal now, scaled over last 10 years and is now Nifty 50 stock, which is like the top 50 companies in India, and in a decade, you know, been there to that position and still holding very, very strong, growing massively. I feel the opportunity lies in expanding rapidly from here to the top 5, top 10, tier 1, tier 2 cities in India. As India, the top 10% of the economy actually, or of the population, holds a lot of money in their hands. So we would want to cater to that first. And immediately after, if we see an enemy, or like a counterparty who would want to come in the space, then it will make the game even more fascinating, as the VCs that are backing us would probably, we'll have the space to test how it works in Dubai market. These economies are again very, very large in terms of money in the hand and the overall tendency to spend. So Singapore, Philippines, Japan, we already got an investor in this current round from Japan, opening a corridor of bringing specialized supply of Japanese brands to India, and want to expand through home demos, because they feel Japanese technology cannot be explained through an online ad. It can only be touched, and what better than a home demo in 60 minutes at your home. So it is large. However, as entrepreneurs, we have a one hand we hold a telescope, one hand we hold a microscope. So the telescope shows that experiential commerce is the new wave of commerce. It is going to be there for 10 years. How fast and how large can it be? We'll try to defend our territory. In terms of microscope, it is, who do I hire next, which next product do we launch? Those are already decisions that are running in my head, and
Right.
the team. So that's where we are.
With with obviously, it's a very interesting analogy of a microscope and telescope. But with quick commerce particularly, there's a lot of sour taste in the mouth of post COVID, where there was a huge boom and then a huge bust all across the world. And so I'm curious about the economics of this right now. Um, but particularly in the market that you're operating, India and generally, countries in the global south are extremely razor thin margin markets, right? Extremely price competitive. People are sharks in their bargaining and ensuring to get the cheapest possible price out. And so it's generally a price war to the bottom. And what that led to, or leads to more often than not, is a lot of bleeding out of investor capital and not a lot of margins. It ends up becoming a market share game. And in that market share game, because you mentioned competitors as well, I'm curious, um, is on a let's say a per order basis, are you guys profitable? Like, is the cost of that demo, that individual that is obviously probably trained properly, sits in a car, utilizes fuel, goes there, does the demo, comes back, whatever the let's say the economics of that 1 hour spent is that baked into whatever the product is being sold in terms of the margins? And or are you like right now saying, okay, we'll subsidize this to a point where this becomes the standard and norm? And if that is so, isn't that sort of scary, where it's just a matter of who has the bigger muscles? At what point does Flipkart start to plow cash in the market and just sort of takes it away?
Definitely, I think there are multiple businesses out there currently in India where the unit economics don't make sense at all, but they are burning money to capture market and then have some visionary plans of upselling, cross-selling, or utilizing that consumer in multiple ways. However, I feel the bootstrapped company and those values, principles that I've learned, not belonging to any business family, and just compounding cash with my previous companies, and so does my co-founders. I feel uh, we immediately started with electronics as the first category of penetration because of high AOVs, anything above $100 to $150 USD. is where the economies start making sense in terms of the price value of the product that you are demoing. Anything else below, we are enabling through virtual demos, which is simply a person coming on a call, like how it happened in China, the live commerce window. But our moat or the differentiation is the operational fleet which we are setting up, then the hubs every 10 to 15 kilometers where these demo units and the trained professional teams are there. And last but not the least, the unit economics at anything above a 150 to $200, at a unit economic level, with a average 20-25% of commission model, where we have not even started a convenience free from customers, even though it is super convenient, a person coming to your home. And there are companies already in terms of logistic companies as well as the food commerce space have been charging those convenience fee. We feel because of the first mover, there is time to start charging for those, and there are enough and more levers from a brand marketing point of view. Since we are entering a house of a consumer, the t-shirt that we are wearing is up for sponsorship, the bag that we are carrying is up for sponsorship. We can actually carry, let's say an iPhone launches a new phone, we can carry in the entire demo fleet of, whenever we touch like a 10,000 or 20,000 people, doing a almost a lakh or reaching a million demos a day, wherein these companies who puts a lot of branding money can actually give us a demo unit and enter like 10 lakh homes every day, is where we see this catapulting into a lot more layered of monetization that can come through it. And data being one of the largest, wherein entering a home, taking a consent of a voice recording, and not pushing for sale but helping them make the right choice in terms of comparison and experience, is where we feel there is a large way to go. And we are CM2 positive right now with a first round of tranche coming, and now closing our seed capital as we speak. Both of these elements of being CM2 positive shows that there is a lot of scope to make it profitable while growing. So it's not an it's not an or conversation, it's an and conversation for us.
No, that makes sense. I think what I found particularly interesting was that you're essentially digitizing and absorbing the sort of sales agent industry, because that's a huge industry. There are people, you go out there, you hire them, you have them stand in malls, you do this and that, and that's just random. You're throwing money in front of random eyeballs, hoping that some sort of conversion would happen. What you're essentially saying is, we have the targeted customer, we've built that funnel, we've sort of cleaned up that data, and if you want that targeted customer and you want a sales experience to go with it, basically you come in and you sort of subsidize, potentially, or call it subsidy, or call it an advertising play. But basically, let's say the Dysons and the Apples and the Samsungs of the world, if they have a new product coming in, they can come to you and they can say, okay, can we, while you're going and selling to, let's say, 100,000 houses, drop in an insight about this new product so that they have an understanding, even though that's not what they're sort of buying for, but that's how you reach a customer who has an intent or a signal, potentially to buy from you. Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes, yes, Muzamil, absolutely. Brand marketing is something you just want to capture their attention, not necessarily at the right time, probably, but that's how you build the top of the funnel. Because once, if they would have seen through a demo person that they were carrying a new iPhone or a nothing phone that they just simply put on the table or spoke about for a minute while their main demo of, let's say, a coffee machine or whatever primary product was happening, is a real human conversation happening. And a lot of top of the funnel get wasted by these brands on billboards and a lot of random advertising. Here it's very very targeted. We have the data of what houses that we are entering, what is the household potential income as per pin code clarity, what are family members that are inside as per their profiling. So it makes it a lot more useful budgets on marketing, while we want to continue at a commission level of per sale being profitable. However, we feel that pressure might loosen out as soon as we hit scale. Our investors very well put it that scale is the oxygen for a marketplace. It's
Mm.
like, you are deep underwater, and companies like Amazon's, the consumer tech space, be it Uber, be it any of these companies, before hitting scale, the network effect which gets you monetization going from a lot of levers is something. Yes, it requires money early on, but it can fly on its own, and can be a very very big cash flow machine. The Airbnbs of the world, initially took a lot of capital, but now they make like $1 billion on pat, which is amazing to see. As a company, you are
Mm.
almost adding like a economy to scale. So yeah, that's where we are at.
Makes sense. Makes sense. We're gonna wrap this up. Just want to get a sense of, if I were to ask you, what are your three most exciting startups, particularly in India? I'm not talking about, let's say, the already famous ones. I'm talking about the undiscovered ones. Um, Companies that you think are doing phenomenal work, that are going to really sort of create long term, groundbreaking value. Can you name like three, four out there in India that majority of the people haven't discovered yet?
Very interesting. So, across space, probably I'll pick one that will help me sort out. So, in the case of D2C, direct to consumer brands, I feel there is a company called Super U, which is a protein bar with a yeast, where they have actually come up with a protein that does not bloat you, or it's very very lean on the muscle. I think they have scaled very fast in India through quick commerce. It's like a protein bar you can get in 10 minutes, and gives you that energy, no sugar, and high protein. In terms of consumer internet, I feel Rapido as a company, which is a even in the era of Uber and Ola, they were able to come up with a business model to actually, taking up the market share in India, almost competing to these players after like a 5 6 years of penetration of Uber and Ola in the country. Coming up with a business model is immensely respectful. In terms of AI, there is a company called Sarvam AI, which is making their own infra, and setting up. They are in the AI infra, and like a competitor to these clouds and these models, like the first model that have come through India. And I think in space tech, there are multiple agencies that we don't know of because it's not very fancy in Eastern economy. Even though, SpaceX IPO, one of the largest, has now made everyone being aspirational to, this sci-fi or the space tech world. In India, there are multiple companies in defense tech, space tech, that have entered, which takes a lot of guts to start from an economy where capital is not like exponentially available, and you want to build these space giants. I feel we are entering that era of challengers coming in and disrupting all industries. So yeah, those are my favorite startups wherein someone questions, can you really build this? And because it might take a lot of capital or that intellect, but still entrepreneurs take that leap of faith and build it. So that is where
100%.
yeah.
Varun, this was an exciting conversation. Again, you mentioned early on, I have a great energy. I think you have an absolutely phenomenal energy. I got to learn so much about India, particularly. I'd love to speak to more founders from there as well. I think what you guys have going on there is just it's electric in many ways, because you're building a base that is so on top of like a huge economy. You know, दिमाग घूम जाता है when you even imagine the possibilities out there. And just as you, towards the end, you mentioned space. I actually did a study on SpaceX recently, and I was just absolutely mind blown by the amount of startups that are either coming from India, literally people in India building startups, creating these crazy visions about the future that, if you backtrack, are very real. They're gonna happen. But also a lot of Indian, like expat Indian founders, who are now getting into any major space startup that you pick out today has at least one co-founder who's from India. So I definitely, I completely agree there. I think there's an incredible industry in the making, just like the IT industry from India is world famous. I think space is going to be a phenomenal frontier for India as well. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing all that insight. I wish you all the very best. I'm excited to see where you go from here, and how you expand across India. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Muzamil.
And for all of you guys, let me know in the comment section below, particularly if you are joining in from India, what is the startup ecosystem like over there? How do you see the growth, particularly around AI? And for people from all over the world, how do you see generally AI impacting commerce? Again, something that we interact with every single day. How do you expect that to change in the coming days, courtesy of AI? Nonetheless, I'm going to wrap this up. This was Syed Muzamil Hassan Zaidi. You are watching Beyond the Bubble podcast by Noodle Seed Studios. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.